Hello and welcome back to Anna Rose Reads the podcast. I am your host, Anna, and this week delivers yet another week of bringing you all an episode that I hold very near and dear to my heart. This week I bring CJ Leede onto the show. This will be, I believe, her second time on to talk about her third novel, Headlights. And Headlights is a book that rocked my soul in a way that only CJ's work can do. CJ has written three books now, obviously, and each one is vastly different from the other. But there's one thing that CJ understands in writing, and that's reaching her readers on a soul level. If it, in terms of, in Mayfly, it's about anger and rage, and American Rapture, it's about coming of age and understanding who you are in this landscape, and some anger and rage there too. But Headlights is a book that's deep about grief and what happens to us after we're gone, and it's fucking terrifying, quite frankly. Um, and CJ does a wonderful job of traversing that landscape and providing a poignant, gory, sexy tale about all of it. So we're going to talk about it in great depth, and I hope that you all enjoy it. And if you all don't know, I am going to be doing an event with CJ this week on Thursday in Springfield, Missouri, and I'll get some more details about that at the end of the episode, so stick around to hear about that. But yeah, hope you all enjoy. Hello, CJ. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good. How are you?
Well, I'm thrilled because I'm talking to you. So anytime that we can make that happen, it's a great time.
I know I've been
Where
really looking forward to it. I just love getting to see your beautiful face.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry on camera, even though people can't see it. Well, where in the world are you these days? I know that you've been living on the road, so tell listeners how things are going for you right now.
Yeah, we've been so for over a year, we just have not had a home. And I guess that's still true. We are temporarily in the Northeast and it's beautiful. It's funny, everybody keeps talking to us about they're like, finally spring is coming, it's finally warming up, and we're like, we've been in like Florida and Texas and California. Like we don't I haven't seen an ounce of cold in so long. But yeah, it's beautiful. Happy to be here. We're close to New York City, so we can get in and out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm much like you in that it's been very warm here the whole time and it's not been cold hardly at all. So I was just talking to TJ, he's like, "Yeah, it might snow in Colorado today." I'm like, "Must be nice." Because it's like 80 over here.
Crazy.
But yeah, no, I'm really thrilled for you to kind of, take some time and be settled for a bit. But this is a really big question and not really pertinent to Headlights, the book that we're going to be talking about today, but just in general. This is a really broad question, but like, how has the writing been? Because you're still writing and being a creative person while on the road. So I'm a little curious how that's been. I imagine it's very inspiring, but also maybe a little hard to like focus
Yeah,
on.
I think, so like Headlights is my third book, and then I've been working on my fourth and fifth books. And I think more than being on the road, what I've been kind of struggling with and trying to figure out and trying to learn from like other authors who've been doing this longer than me how to do is like you're like I've been promoting book
Oh
three
yeah. Hmm.
while editing and rewriting book four, while
Yeah.
initial drafting book five and researching and gathering ideas. And I find it to be like, I don't, I'm learning how to do all of it. And I think that is more of the thing. But being on the road, like, I would say my schedule shifts more, but I'm also like an antsy person who can't handle like too much of a routine anyway,
Yeah.
in normal circumstances. And I don't know, I get so many ideas. Like the ideas are off the charts. It's
Yeah.
just now like the execution. But it does feel like, and we stop in every bookstore that we come across. Like I get on IndieBound. I don't know if people like know about this IndieBound map. It's so sick. And it's like all of America. It might be beyond America. And it shows you all the indie bookstores, like wherever you are, or at least a lot of them. And you can just pop in. So we've been doing that. We've probably been to like 60. I don't know. So
Yeah.
many.
Well, y'all started that Instagram page, which I really love because every time that y'all go, y'all photograph the stores that y'all go to and everything, and that's been
Yeah.
very, very cool to see. But yeah, I mean, I know for me, whenever I travel, one when I'm on a plane and like in transit is when I do a lot of my thinking.
Yep.
So like I imagine all that you see is like really, really inspiring. But yeah, the whole tonal shift of like going from book three to four to five is a lot, especially when they're never really near the same stage of development. And like it's
Yeah.
almost like kind of like method acting whenever you want to immerse yourself in
Yeah.
that thing and like live in that world you can't, and that's kind of rough, man. Like
Yeah, and promo is interesting because you sort of, at least for me, like I kind of became an author because I was like, oh, I'm gonna be so like I'm gonna spend my days alone quietly. And it's interesting because this job, and this is a real gift and upside of the job, but like there's such a social aspect to this job.
yeah,
Like the events, the cons that we were talking about before we started recording, and like where I'm always like so looking forward to seeing everyone and that I don't know. It's interesting kind of like code switching in these ways, but it feels like such a gift to just get to be a part of a community where there's always something happening and there's always stuff to participate in and get to go visit and
yeah.
it's the best.
Yeah, no, I feel you there. It's very like the highs are very high whenever you get to be like
Yeah.
around your people and celebrate the stuff that you want. But I know it's also like very hard to come back home, or like just the in solitude part of writing of like, you can't, or you shouldn't talk about, especially with like once a publishing deal is made, like you can't advertise and talk about things as widely and freely as you probably like. So I can empathize on those like two very extreme ends of the social scale with this
Yeah.
career. But we are here today to talk about your third book, Headlights, which I absolutely adore. Um, this book is incredible for so many reasons, and it's one that like really has stuck with me since I read it a long time ago. But do you want to go ahead and like briefly introduce the plot, and then I want to hear where this all started for you, like where the nugget of Daniel Stansfield's story began, because I am so intrigued by this nexus.
Yeah, thank you. And so the sort of pitch I've been rolling with is like people are waking up on the side of the highway in Colorado, naked, feet bloodied, many miles from where they last remember being, with the skin of someone they've allegedly never met hanging around their shoulders and a single hair tied around their tongues. And the bodies are found, skinned and cannibalized, back many miles back in like drain pipes. And the very tortured detective, who has been working on the case in the past, has to come back and try and solve it. And it starts to kind of point um, to things closer to home. And he has to like really face a lot of his own sort of like past and ghosts and history in order to like stop the killings. And yeah, yeah. That's
That's a
kind
good pitch. No, that's a really good pitch. Yeah, there's a lot there. I love that you're starting off with the brutality of of like where we're finding people, where we're finding these victims,
yeah.
because that's a huge part of this story. But Daniel really is like, I mean, it honestly, whenever we read a book through a character's perspective, that is our anchoring point. That's like a huge deal. But Daniel is that's our investigator. Is such a his where he's at mentally and his like emotional state and everything is so raw and all consuming. So I'm very curious how you landed on this place that we find him in when we start this book.
Yeah. So the best I can do to remember where this kind of began is because I worked on this book for like 4 or 5 years and it was
Mhm.
very like it was like kind of stop and start progress for a long time. And I had this idea of I think where I just started the pitch is kind of where I started the book in my head, which is like I kind of saw what the sort of like serial crimes were.
Hmm.
And I knew there was going to be like a supernatural aspect, and that's not spoilery. It's like
Yeah.
that's the beginning of the book, and it's on the jacket. Um, but I was walking like 2 miles each way to this office, this shared office that I was going to every day in Santa Monica for a while when I was living there. And I was like halfway through my walk on the way there one day, and I sort of just saw these images of these people and like saw like how baffled they were. And like, I was like, that's interesting. What is that? And then I started kind of seeing this guy and thinking about him and how like sensitive and sad and tortured he was. And then I started seeing this woman who's another character in the book, and I the book felt like it in a way like stumbling around in the dark, like following lights, and that's I was also dealing with a lot of grief, and like that's kind of what grief feels like to me too, is this sort of like stumbling around in the dark. And so the book was, it is like these characters trying to figure out what's going on, but it was kind of me trying to find the answer to something, and that something being like what is death and what is our place here? And then it kind of built from there, and I knew it was going to have a lot to do with nature and ecosystems, because that and the very Western aspects are my real association with Colorado,
Yeah.
like outdoors and Western. There's also lots of other stuff, but that's been my Colorado. So that's kind of what I included. And
Yeah.
I haven't really talked about this much, but there was a day that the book wasn't totally clicking. And
Hmm.
there was a day, this has never happened to us before or since, and hopefully it never does. But Kyle and I got locked out of our house at
Oh
night,
yeah.
and our dogs were in there. We had like one dog outside with us. The other dogs were inside sleeping. And we were fully locked out. The only person who had a key was our dog trainer, who was like all the way like hours across town. And we couldn't get in the car because we didn't have the car keys. So, and I don't even know if we had a wallet or anything. But we had to wait like 2 hours in the dark. And I just had this time to sort of think. And Kyle, of course, went and UFO watched in the backyard. And then this moment clicked for me, this scene in the book and this idea, and then that was kind of it. It was like it almost felt cosmic, like the universe was
Yeah.
here. This is it. This is what you need to put in.
Yeah, it kind of gave you that moment. And the reason I laugh so hard whenever you say Kyle went go UFO watch is one, I've sat and had a beer with Kyle for more than like 5 minutes, so that's true. Second, and I don't mean to hijack this conversation to like make this about his book, but he also writes about that in his book. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting that it's this, I don't want to say super pivotal moment for both y'all, but like it's a big that night is like very special to both of y'all.
It was a big
And
night. And I'm glad you mentioned his book actually, because his book, The Problem Drinker, which is coming out soon, we wrote those Problem Drinker and Headlights
yeah,
about that was like us dealing with the same time period of life
that's so
together,
cool
side
that
by
y'all did
side,
that. Yeah.
So they're like good companion pieces.
Yeah, God, I love that so much, man. But no, I mean, there's a lot that you just said that I really want to pick up on, specific to the plot and the narrative of this story. But I also want to ask you about this too. But you said that this book is your experience with Colorado. And like you are traveling so much. And I think that it's really interesting that you are able to write your definition of a place in a way that is so immersive. You've done it with your other books. I mean, you've done it with, Mayfly and with American Rapture. And then in particular, like this book is very heavily saturated in like, you know, John Denver and like Colorado and all of these like very Western references. And I mean, I'm a former horse girl. I mean, I totally love and live for it. But it's its own, it feels like, the way that you write across the board, not just with this book, is, and this is not a new idea, but like that the setting is its own character. But this is so fucking true for you in your writing, like to the next level. And I want to hear from you, like how that feels on the writer side of it to kind of be so immersed in an actual state like this when you're drafting something.
I love it. I mean, I feel like to me, like I'm so greedy. I'm so greedy. Like everywhere we go, I can't always even enjoy a moment because I'll be like I want more. Like we see a beautiful mountain and I'm like I want to get on top of that. Or like
Yeah.
we go to a cool roadside attraction and I'm like I want to do this every day. Like I'm such like a more person. So when I pick a place, it's never enough. Like
Yeah.
I wish I had many lifetimes to write like all the things about a place. And so obviously I have to pick and choose and then also kind of figure out what ends up really suiting the narrative. But I love the idea of like my characters and the storyline sort of growing organically out of the place, but also vice versa, the place starting to reflect the characters in the storyline. Like and I do it in obvious and maybe sometimes cheesy ways. Like, in Maeve, like I utilize the earthquakes and I utilize like, environmental things to sort of like reflect what's going on internally with the characters. But in this one, I had a lot of fun with the snowfall and this Headlights has a lot to do with The Shining, but my favorite paragraph in the book, The Shining, is when the snow comes. And it's just
Yeah.
like this moment where you're just like, fuck, you feel it changing. And so, yeah, I love it. And I want to keep writing about place forever. And it'll probably be mostly just America because I'm so sort of, one, we live here, and two, I'm just fascinated by this culture of ours.
Well, and I'm saying this, and this is a little bit more of like a personal anecdote, but I've been with you whenever you're somewhere, like whenever you came to New Orleans, and I got to like hang out with you for a little bit, and I love like you're the favorite kind, my favorite kind of person to travel with because seeing everything through your eyes is such a joy. Like
Oh,
you were one of those people who just appreciates the little things that make a place. And so, like you said, like, I use like the earthquakes in California. Like, no, but that's so part of it, like you can't separate the like sometimes they feel like caricatures, but I've never once felt like in your writing that was the case. Like I think that all of those things are what makes a place a place. And so it always fascinates me how much you can immerse yourself in a place and like do it justice. Like that's one of my few things. I mean, I've not lived in Colorado, so maybe, I don't know what what authority I have to say this, but like whenever I don't listen to John Denver often, but I every now and then whenever I do, I'm like, yeah, that's Headlights. You know what I mean? Like you create those
yeah.
such strong like visceral associations, you know?
Thank you. And it's funny with John Denver because so many readers have been like, wow, you can just feel this is somebody who's like loved John Denver her whole life. And it's like, I really never listened to John Denver before this book. And he's not from Colorado. But he chose the last name Denver and he lived in Aspen. But um, it, I don't know. I mean, how am I gonna like write a Colorado book? And I always use music so much and not have like Rocky Mountain High be a part of it. And, he had so many songs about this
Yeah.
place. And then I ended up reading his autobiography and watching the made for TV movie, which is a banger, by the way. Everybody should watch that. And yeah, it started to become part of the thing. But it's cool the people who make a place too. Like Hunter S. Thompson was
Yep.
obviously like a huge part of, and Kerouac was in Denver. Like Denver used to be a con artist city. Like it's all these pieces, and then you
Hmm.
have like the Deadheads, and you have like there's just everything.
There is. And I feel like Denver in particular, like with Red Rocks, there's so many people who have like come through. Like it's
Yeah.
very thematically on par with your book. It's a passing through place, for a lot of creative people.
Yeah,
So it's
and it's a
very,
nature like that.
yeah,
That's like the only stadium or like I don't know how to say like music venue arena I've ever
yeah,
been to in my life where like you have wildlife like literally there during concerts. Like
yeah,
there would be like a deer on the side of the riser or the stands, and like there's like a raccoon that hangs out and like goes and tries to steal from like the snack areas.
yeah. It's just
Crazy.
mad. That kind of shit's just so magical to me. I mean, you can't recreate it anywhere else, and that's that the signature of a place like that is so distinct. So it's something that really comes through in your book. Hi, Anna from the future here in the editing bay. My next question, I use a term that I should not have used that I did not realize was not a term that I should have used. I reference something that I've always heard in passing to a certain ranch in reference to like a supernatural paranormal creature that kind of hijacks the identity of something it shouldn't be. And that is what I am referencing in what CJ created with her crimes that are in this book. And I definitely did not realize that it was offensive. So one, apologies for that. Two, just know that my question is posited around the idea of kind of like the doppelganger, imposter, wrong entity stealing of something else's presence that I'm hoping to cover with the crimes that take place in this book. So, just for clarification and to apologize, I have since looked into it. We shouldn't use that word, and it has been addressed. So, please note, carry on. And then I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. There's so much that I want to talk to you about with this book, but we opened up with, like you said, you started with these victims and like how these crimes were going to look. And I remember whenever I read it for the first time, and if we want to cut this because this seems spoilery, we can. But I was like, oh my God, she like essentially made a skinwalker like a thing. Like these people are walking around wearing somebody's skin, but it's not wanted. It's not malevolent. It's not ill intent. And that was such like a I had such a crazy time, like creative time, unpacking the crime itself with that. And I'm somebody who looks at that kind of shit. So like my nerd brain just like went off in all directions. Did you feel that way when you came up with it? Like it was it just gnarly to you or like a
It was gnarly. It's with that, okay, so with that particular term,
yeah.
like I I feel like there is like some cultural element of like like I try to steer away from that term, but it definitely was, on my mind. And
Yeah.
I also am like a little bit afraid of those. And
Yeah.
my boyfriend is very into paranormal stuff and very into like strange happenings around America. And so he reads a lot about this. He has taken me like, we'll detour to wherever either of us wants to go. And that's kind of the rule was like we just both say yes.
Yeah.
But he had us drive up to the edge of a very famous ranch in the Southwest,
Yeah.
and like that, that was like really exciting to him to go up to the gate with all the cameras there. Um, yeah, they things like that really scare me and also really interest me. And but it was like probably loose inspiration, but also the question in the book is like, is this just is it like a culty thing? Like
Hmm.
are the people just following a leader, or are they in on it together? Because there are
Yeah.
these chat rooms in the book and like what, you know. So yeah, it's that question of like what is happening? What is
Yeah.
happening?
The connectivity of it all is really like where the big mystery comes in. And like, I think that a big thing that like definitely captures my attention is just like the unexplained in the wild or in the wilderness and like in the expanse of that side of the US, all of the weird things that have happened that nobody really has an explanation for. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to kind of marry those concepts into something more concrete, that you see like in a procedural way. And I'm very curious about how it was to write horror and procedure because that's something that always fascinates me is that, crime and like law enforcement like following it's normally beat by beat. Like normally when you read
Yeah.
crime fiction, I've talked about this like before on other episodes with other, people who've done the crime horror thing, but to each writer's approach to following their own logic of like horror and then the actual like real world logic is always so interesting to me because they don't always get along, but when they do, it's incredible, you know?
Yeah, well, this is the perfect time to
Oh.
tell that so I had six authenticity readers on this book. Like this was a book where I knew immediately that I needed help because I don't read true crime. It scares the shit out of me. I don't like it. Like it, I mean, I respect it, but it's like it scares me too much.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't read any detective stories or thrillers really before this, and then I like, mainlined a bunch. Um, but I knew I needed help, and so Anna, you, everyone, Anna was one of my authenticity readers, and actually um provided like the most incredible ideas and feedback. And obviously, you're a writer too. You think like a writer. So that's always so nice. Um, because, you get these creative ideas offered to you. But no, it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. And you found issues. You were like, I don't really think like that what could happen that way, but it could probably happen this way, this way, this way. And like that sort of this book felt even a little more collaborative to me in these ways because I had so much input from different folks, from Colorado people. I wanted a veteran to read it and weigh in, and but yeah, Anna, sidebar, Anna's an amazing authenticity reader and editor. If anybody ever needs to know this.
Well, thank you. I swear I did not tee this up as as a shameless self-plug. But no, genuinely, like, but honestly, like, I'll say this very candidly, like, you did an excellent job of setting things up. Like, it wasn't, there was not, to me, it felt very natural and normal the way that this story progressed into like, this is really violent and bizarre into something else. And I think a lot of times, whenever you try and marry horror and something like a crime procedural plot line, that's very, very difficult because they're like two sides of your brain, kind of like, the artistic and the logical side. So I'm all, it's so interesting to me whenever you can make it work, and you certainly did. Um,
Thank you.
I think in part though that it works so well because of Daniel and because of his character and where he's at. And so I also wanted to ask you, we've mentioned it before, but Daniel's kind of in the trenches a bit when we meet him. He's very tortured. He's been through a lot, more than most, I would say. And you write him in a way that I think pays respect to a lot of the feelings of trauma that people endure while they are working in law enforcement. In general, going through life, experiencing loss or like high degrees of stress. It's all very, very real and raw. But I'm very curious how it felt for you to live in his head for this long. Like, was it rough for you at
Yeah.
all?
Well, he's just such a like I just want to hug him.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just this poor man. Um, yeah, there were like a lot of pieces to this. I think I felt so raw writing this book because with my other two, I was kind of saying something like both
Hmm.
Maeve and American Rapture. I was like, these are things I don't like about the world. Like, these are things that make me angry or make me feel XYZ. And I sort of was putting out this like statements.
Yeah.
I was putting out statements, and headlights is more like a question.
Hmm.
It is this question of like what is this death thing? And so Daniel's a character who's like really entrenched in grief
Yeah.
and who's had this life that is just like so terrible and difficult at times. And he's kind of asking himself, and I was really asking myself this question a lot when I was writing this book, like this sort of realization that, and not to be so depressing, but it's part of it all. Like
Yeah.
the realization that like at one point, everyone you know is going to be gone.
Hmm.
And it might be before you and it might be after you. And at one point you're going to be gone. And so this whole thing of like life almost sometimes, when you lose people back to back, feeling like this series of just losses that never end and it's not going to end, and it's sort of like how do we keep going when
Yeah.
we know this. And it's I don't even think it's about the sort of oblivion potential of it. I think it's the being here once somebody's gone who you
Yeah.
just miss so much. And so that was what it was like being in Daniel's head, because it was what it was like being in my head. And people are like, how was it writing a male main character? And I'm like, I don't know, he's just like a person, you know? Like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the only part that was hard about that was like, there's a there's a scene in a bathroom, and it was interesting being in like a male body
Yeah.
that scene, and there's a dancing scene, and same thing there. So, but those were the only times I really thought a bunch about it. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things that when the emotion is so raw and real at that degree, like to me, that's not even it's not even a question. I don't want to say it's not even a question because obviously it is a factor and like knowing Daniel as a character, but like
Yeah,
at that point, you were so immersed in his story and like what he is up against that to me, it the rawness of his emotions far exceeds like the gender or sex, like you know what I mean? Like any part of that is not as, whatever. Like, and it's really interesting because Maeve and American Raptor, like, big time, are kind of entrenched in like the female
yeah, very.
perspective. Um, but I think with Headlights, I really appreciated that it's just a humanity book. Like it's just a universal equalizer. Like you said, everybody's gonna experience death in one way, shape, or another, and like what the fuck are we gonna do about it, you know?
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah, and this is
yeah.
like I kind of feel like, normal people, this is non-horror writers who say, uh I think non-horror writers, which is like most of people on Earth, cannot or will not or don't want to, and very reasonably sit and look at death all day long
Yeah, yeah.
and the darkness. Um, but I can't seem to look away from it. So I kind of feel like my job is to sit with these things and kind of like look out into the dark alone in my room, um, for many hours at a time and like see if I can find something there to kind of bring back for everyone else. And I think that's kind of what this book is like. This book, it's a weird book. Like this is not a normal, procedural.
Yeah.
It's a weird book. It's a book about uncertainty. It's a book about like you never know where things are going to go. And it's also kind of my offering to say like maybe this is one potential version of things, and maybe this is one potential way to look at this sort of like death thing and hold it together, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to keep this in or not, but personally, I want to add this. Every time that I talk to somebody about this book who's just read it, they're like, "Man, this was like really for you," knowing what my job used to be,
Yeah.
working in forensics, and then like plus even like the horse side, like the Western side of it, and everything else. Like,
We're the
this
horse
book,
girls, this one.
yeah, this book is like very much for me to a T. But something that you just said is so true because a lot of people used to ask me why I wanted to work in like forensics and crime because it's
Yeah.
it's it's undoubtedly gonna wreck you.
Yeah.
There's empirical evidence that says it. And so it's like, why do you do that anyway? But much like you just said, is like I was somebody who thought about death a lot and like or like hurt and like why do we do it? Why how do we get here and what do we do about it? And I wanted to do something with it and I felt like I had the capacity to go and do something with it. And so I did. And yeah, it burned me out. It flayed me out. It was rough. It was a rough time. But I think that your understanding of that and much like your wanting to understand the darker side of this life, I think that that's where this book wins out in marrying the logic and the unexplained. And that's the whole point of like living. You know what I mean? Like you are gonna get some things. There's gonna be science to explain it all, and then there's not. And we kind of have to make peace with that. And that is what this book is. And that, I mean, it's really why I love it so much, because I don't think in this lifetime we'll ever get the answers to everything. I think that's too big of an ask. But to come from a place of understanding how rough it can be and like really being in it, and obviously I mean you've experienced loss and heartache, and I mean everybody
Yeah,
has.
and who hasn't?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that this book in particular is like just really beautiful for that reason, and it brings me to my next point, and I'm not going to say what it is because this is something that readers need to discover on their own, but the book's title, Headlights, you have a pretty lengthy passage that one of the characters gives about headlights and like what that means, and within the context of the scene, it means a lot. And I'm
Yeah.
again not going to get too far into it because readers need to discover that on their own. But I wanted to give you the space to kind of talk about where that came from because in writing it, because it's probably one of my favorite passages in like recent fiction that I've read. It is just stunning. And I don't know if it took you a while to get it right or if it was a one go kind of thing, but it's a really powerful passage of this whole book that still sticks with me.
Thank you. I that might have been a one go.
I feel like it probably could have been. It's one of those things that I feel like comes to you and like this is how this
Yeah.
feels and it's got to get on paper.
Yeah, this was my sort of like I'm a big Mike Flanagan fan. This
Yeah.
was my sort of like the monologues on
Yes.
what
Maybe
is
this is
this?
why I
Yeah,
love it.
exactly. Like that was my moment. Yeah, so this book, like when I haven't kept a single title I've put forth for books, but the original title of this book was All the Headlights Shining.
Hmm.
Um, and that was I always put kind of cheesy titles to begin with that always directly reference things too. So, obviously The Shining is a huge part of this book explicitly.
Yes.
But this idea of like shine from The Shining has always stuck with me. And I was a kid who was always really afraid of supernatural things and always kind of felt like they were around. And I don't know if they were or if I just, was a kid who was scared and had like an imagination. But when I did eventually watch The Shining, and it was this idea of almost like Danny as like this battery,
Hmm.
like charging up this place, and then the place sort of feeding on, the susceptible parent. Like all of that, it just kind of like lit a spark in me. I've always been very interested by this idea that comes up in a lot of Stephen King's books about the shine.
Yeah.
And yeah, that, and I always knew headlights at night were going to be part of it because this feeling of like your headlights in front of your car when you drive in a dark road at night, that wherever you are, if it's like really rural, if it's not well
Yeah.
lit, in the mountains, there is this feeling of like you really don't know what's beyond like however many feet in front of your car, and
No.
that sort of like very slight outer glow. And that is also what this human business feels like, is like we don't fucking know. We can only see so much in front of us at any given time. So if you're an investigator trying to get to the bottom of something, if you're a human trying to figure out how to live with these concepts that are like so beyond our capabilities to understand, it's just like we're just dealing with this little bit of like flashlight beam in front of us. And yeah, so all of those things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm really glad that you brought up The Shining because I do want to talk about that a little bit. But no, I'm totally. It's just it feels like such an apt metaphor for understanding where we're at and where we're going. Like we're maybe on the precipice of learning more, and maybe we're not. Like there's really no way to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I think, I mean, I've driven around the country at night, not in the mountains, but like rural
No,
Mississippi where
oh
there's
yeah, and
no
that's the
light.
darkest. Like I've
Yeah.
some of those roads, you're like, I haven't seen a street lamp in like an
No,
hour.
in miles. Yeah. And like anything can run out in front of you and
Yep.
there's no
Yeah.
stopping it,
Yeah.
which feels very also on thematically on par. Just yeah, that metaphor just absolutely sings for me. But I do want to turn back to The Shining a bit. There are so many nods and like you said, intentionally and like, I love that you confront that book the way that you do in this book. You like are unashamedly like, yeah, the mom has a copy of The Shining, Daniel stands, you know what I mean? Like all these things. Um, what did you all were you always comfortable leaning that hard into it and like kind of recognizing it, or was that more of a decision later on down the line? Because I think it's
Yeah.
always tricky whenever you're referencing something else like that, but I feel like it does better when you just lean into it. in this way.
I do too, personally. And obviously it's going to come down to taste. Like
Yeah.
it's interesting seeing how people kind of respond to that aspect of
Yeah.
it. But yeah, early on, early readers were like, you got to either like cut this or go all the way in.
Hmm.
And I just thought, why wouldn't I go all the way in? And also like, we're in this amazing horror space. I'm talking about Colorado. Like if you're in the horror community, there is this huge thing about Colorado and Stephen King, and obviously not just The Shining, there's Misery, and these are big things for us. So I enjoyed playing with it. I enjoyed the hotel stuff. I mean, all of it. It's such a special book. And even this tension between like the book and the film and the mini series and all of that is like very interesting to
Yeah.
me, very charged. And I happen to love all three
Yeah.
personally. But yeah, it's like it's just so freaking good. So
To me,
celebratory of it.
yeah, and to me, it's got one of the biggest like pop culture presences
Yeah.
of any work of anything. Honestly, like I was just talking about this, Caroline Bix just had her book come out that was like,
Yeah.
she's doing all that research with this stuff. And we were talking about it, and I was saying how parts of The Shining were like in my subconscious before I ever read it, watched it, whatever did it as a kid. And like she's like, where did that come from? And I was like, I can't tell you. It's just one of those permanent fixtures in pop culture that like you recognize the carpet patterning like
Yeah.
without even knowing it. The twins, the bloody hallway from the movie, I mean the cover from, with Danny's shining eyes and the lion, the topiary,
Yeah.
like it's just so iconic. So to me, to not lean into it and lean into the iconicism of it would be a misstep. So I'm so glad that you did, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, it was just fun.
Yeah.
That was a fun aspect of this book. And this book, like, I would say not all of this book was fun to work on. Like some of it was
Yeah.
excruciating, but that's how they all are. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. I do want to pivot a little bit to talk about another character in this book, and it might be a little tricky to talk about her because her story, her reveal of her story, it's crucial and big. But there's a character named Hannah that we meet, who I love her to death. And she has a really unique, interesting, harrowing story that we learn as we read, and as it pertains to Daniel and what he comes across whenever he gets to know her better, et cetera, et cetera. How did you come up with Hannah's backstory as loosely as we can talk about? Because it is big and it's heavy.
Yeah. So I've actually outlined it. I kind of want to release it as its own
Ooh.
little book.
That would be interesting. Yeah, good
Yeah, like a
point.
prequel. It could stand alone too.
Like
Like
a
it would
novella tie-in kind of.
like a novella. Yeah, exactly. How do I talk about it? I there's I Hannah came to me very quickly, is
Hmm.
what I'll say. And I feel like with this book, I'm exploring something that is a huge part of me and my life and my history as a person, which I didn't really delve into at all with my first two books, which is this like outdoors connection.
Yeah.
And this sort of like, I always feel kind of like I'm such a basic bitch. I love wolves. Everybody knows it. It's my favorite animal, like everybody else. But like I almost feel like as a person, I'm like Kyle says this too, like I'm like a wolf dog. Like I I can do normal life, but
Yeah.
there's always like a part of me that's just like wants to get back to like sleeping in the dirt away from human world, for months at a time, or like I just this sort of like push-pull between like wilderness and the man-made world is something that's very much on my mind all the time, is something that I kind of grapple with at different times. And that's something that kind of Hannah as a character, like that I was able to explore. And then, Daniel is somebody who's kind of asking this question of like, is there something more, and is it found in the wilderness and nature, and or is it not? And like yeah, it's so much a part of the book. Man-made structures
Yeah.
versus wild, what it is to be tamed or untamed or wild or not. And it's funny to have this conversation as lawnmowers are going by outside at my rental. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I can't hear him at all. You're
But it's
fine.
yeah, the wild being tamed.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's does that answer that question?
It
Kind
does.
of,
The
you know,
yeah,
kind of.
I was hoping that we could talk about it thematically, like broad strokes, and that very much
Yeah,
addresses that because again, much of this book is best left to be discovered by the reader and not, this is one of the books that it surprises you in the best ways. So, yeah, I really appreciate what you were exploring with that. And I think that that's something that I also struggle with is like, yeah, city life and being connected and like being able to pop over to a gas station and grab a Diet Coke is a
yeah,
beautiful thing, a beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful thing.
We love a crisp DC.
Me too, but also I have such an appreciation, like the amount of all, and like this is again, I probably like you, I feel very basic for saying this, but like going to Yellowstone for the first time a few years
Yeah,
ago and just taking in all that there is, the wildlife, the scenery, the way that that place exists is just, it leaves you speechless. Like I still go back and look at pictures and I don't understand how we were there and then we just left and like it's still there. And like people aren't there, like I'm not there all the time, but it lives in my mind a lot. So
yeah,
I think it's one of those things that her character really embodies that feeling that I relate to so much and why she means a lot to me. Um, and this is not, I don't think this is a spoiler, but in a lot of ways that horror books normally are, I would argue that Headlights is a bit of a love story. Sometimes between some characters, potentially, it may or maybe not. I don't know. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to spoil, but more than anything, it's about like love of life and love of existing and the
yeah,
push and pull of that. And that feels really big and heavy. And it's something that I think that you really address with the ending of this book. And I kind of wanted to give you the space to talk about the love story of humanity that you find with the end of this book.
yeah. It's love of humanity and love of this mortal life and love of nature and our finding our place in it and love of home, whatever that means. And at this time of writing this book too, like um yeah, so we bought a house in California and thought that was going to be like the next 10 years of our lives. And it was like, okay, we're doing the suburbia thing now. We're just going to do it. And then the fires came and like everything changed for us. And that's like a long story that like our house, part of it burned down, part of it didn't, but became like a toxic hazmat zone that was like a very much ongoing issue for like a year. So um it kind of did a lot to my head too about this feeling of like, what is home?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to different people? I also have a personality like I don't know that I ever was going to be a person to stay where I grew up because I have this like sickness of like the restless heart, you know?
Yeah.
But it is like people do. People fall in love with their homes and people never leave or they leave and come back. Or like I think about animal migrations. I think about, just all of these things. And so it ultimately, and I've said this before and I'll keep saying it forever, but I think if you sit and look at anything for long enough, anything even that you hate in the world, anything, I think if you look at it for long enough, you're going to find ways to fall in love with it. Or
Hmm.
at least that's how it is for me. And
Yeah.
I think these questions of home, of mortality, of our fleeting existence, and this push-pull with nature, like we can always do better. I'm sort of saying with the book, like, please, we need to do better.
Yeah.
And also, there's a lot to love about who we are as a people and where, you know, yeah, that was I don't know. I think all like not to be so cheesy, and it's funny because like even Maeve was such a rage book and everything, but like all my books do come from a place of love. Like even that book is like
Oh yeah.
she loves her people, she loves her things, and I love her. I love my characters. I love them. I as if they are real to me in my little brain. So yeah.
They're very easy to love. And I don't think I don't think I cried for Maeve, but American Rapture in this one, I mean, I was like sobbing by the end of it. And I don't know how you get through something like this and and you're not, quite honestly, because there's
Yeah.
something so to the point about exploring those things. And much like Death Home is something that everybody feels, like whether it's the lack thereof or the search for it or finding it. Like those three pillars are always present in somebody's life of wondering where
Yeah.
is this resting place if there even is one for me. And I feel like that's a big thing for Daniel's story. And when he thinks he knows, maybe he doesn't, and circumstances change, and
Yep.
he goes through so much, but it's such a beautiful journey to go on with him. There's a lot of travel per usual, like there's some bouncing around, which I really appreciated. There's some action. But at the end of the day, this is a very emotionally fueled book. There's so much heart in it. And I think that that's the biggest thing that comes through in all of this. But I was curious for you, like, and I've kind of been wanting to ask authors in a not cheesy way, if I can, about
Yeah.
like what each book means to them. And I know that this whole interview is a summation of what
Yeah.
this book is and means to you. But like you said, you're working on different pieces of books 4 and 5 now, and so I'm very curious if like looking back on Headlights at this point, because you're in the publicity stage of
Yeah.
things, what it looks and feels like to you, and if that's changed at all over the course of the life of this book.
Yeah. I think that my first two books, I was able to sort of like scream so much. Like I
Yeah.
was able to get rid of so much that I didn't want to be carrying.
Mm-hmm.
And what it left me with was this sort of like cracked open feeling.
Yeah.
And Headlights is, I don't think I ever could have written Headlights had I not done that first. It was almost like I had to get to this very raw state. Um, and I think Headlights to me is about, yeah, it's about hope. It's about home. It's about meaning and purpose. And I think those are the questions and love and relationships and all these things, but I think those are the questions we're left with when we get rid of, any anger or fear or the loud emotions that we
Yeah.
have. And so Headlights means a lot to me. I had to fight for this book. This was not everyone on my team was a big fan of it early on. There was so much trepidation around, like, no, but you're categorized as like femgore. You're categorized as like you do female horror. And I'm like, well, I'm a female horror author, and some of my characters will be female and some won't, but like it wasn't about that to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just this book. I just felt like there was something here and there was something I had to say. And I know it's different than my other books, but, and I've talked about this a lot, but like, I'm going to put out a book a year. I want them all to be different. I want them all to be interacting with place. I want them all to make readers feel a million feelings, like every feeling under the sun. I want you to feel like confusion and anger and sadness and be turned on and be like, scared, like I want people to feel everything and I want these books to be a catharsis for people and either they can walk away a little bit unburdened, like having been able to let go of something they don't need to carry anymore, or maybe take on something new and say, man, maybe that's a little piece of this book I want to carry, with me and sort of like integrate into myself moving forward. And that's my like hope and dream. So, um I think this humanity business is so crazy and
Yeah.
we're so divided and I get so angry at so much and at the same time like we literally all have this shared experience which is like we're gonna die
Yeah.
and we're alive right now and that is like I think an incredibly unifying thing. And also that none of us have, I mean, some people I guess kind of had near-death experiences, but for the most part, people haven't experienced this. So it's this
Mm-hmm.
mystery that we also like hold together. So, um, yeah.
Yeah.
This book means a lot to me. It feels much more vulnerable in some ways putting this book out than my other two, even
Mm-hmm.
though in other ways it's like the farthest from my life. So it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. I really like what you had and I relate to what you said about what's left over after you get rid of the anger.
Yeah,
After whenever you lose, I think maybe some of the resentment, or maybe you make peace with existing with the resentment or the anger, or like that it's going to be part of your life. You're still left with wherever you go, there you are, and like you are still left with yourself and
yeah.
your humanity. Um, so yeah, I mean, this book does feel transcendent. It does feel like it's wrestling with much bigger things than just a procedural. Like it is so much more than any of that. So I'm really thrilled for you for it to get on shelves and to get into every
Thank
reader's hand who
you.
wants it. But it's one of those I can also appreciate where the vulnerability can feel a bit
Yeah.
much too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I mean, again, like it's just the characters don't sort of look and act like me. Maybe Hannah does a little bit, but in general, like we hide behind fiction. That's why it's funny, like Kyle's book, like he wrote the nonfiction version of this time period of our lives. But I put my stuff behind ghosts and cannibals and whatever. Uh, but all these books are just us,
Yeah.
Like it's just us.
I think that embracing that is the beauty of it too. And I fucking love that you write all over like there's you're covering the female rage spectrum and you're covering the confusion of growing older and understanding the world and being a sexual being in American Rapture, and you're covering the question of life and death and what lies be like. To me, that's the most human thing that you can do. And it's not about, fitting into a box or, reaching a new target audience or anything like that. Like, it's so above all of that. And I think whenever you can create art like that, that really kind of beats out the business logistics of it,
I'm
is
so
when it
glad. Oh,
really
and it's
fucking wins.
the next one too, as a like is even more this question of like what is it to be an artist, But I think
Yeah.
each book will kind of be probably I don't know. I can't care enough about a book to work on it for this amount of time unless there's something that I really care about in it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you spend, especially with traditional publishing, I mean, you spend a long time with these things, as we just were saying about the cycles of publishing, where you're promoting versus drafting versus editing versus, like all these different things. It's a huge, huge time commitment. So, so fair. But that does bring me to my next point. I know that it's not, you can't always talk about what you're working on now and all that
Yeah,
good stuff, but whatever you can share about what you're up to these days, I'm
yeah.
sure people would love to hear it.
I think I can talk about because book four we announced the deal. So it
Yeah.
was kind of floating early, but that's my New York book.
Yes.
So I'm going back to a city and Maeve was kind of a bop. Like it was shorter, it was a little tighter book. American Rapture and Headlights are more sprawling. This fourth book, Night Fever, it's going to be a little tighter like Maeve. Um, but I've been kind of leaning into the gothic with it, which has been very fun. And
Hell yeah.
that's kind of something I found, partway through the process with the help of my editor. And yeah, it's about art and maybe like demons.
Well, I love art about art, so consider me very, very, very excited for this. I think I love when an artist wrestles with what it means to be an artist. I don't know if it feels like something that I've seen a little bit more of lately, because I think that never it's never been more prescient to wrestle with that in the age of like AI and
Ugh.
all that other bullshit. So I know
Yeah,
I won't start us down that path,
yeah.
but it's so important to have that conversation, because I think that it's a little bit of an identity crisis in this day and age to know what we're signing up for whenever we're like, yeah, we want to go create something.
Yeah, and this pressure to sort of, and we already talked about this, but to sort of like hit these marks every
Yeah.
time, and sort of like identify really early on in your career, like this is who I am as an artist. Everything I put out is going to be this, so you can market it this way every time, and this sells. But like we are growing and evolving all the time as people, and I'm really interested in this sort of Americana and place project. So all my
Yeah.
books will really have that, but like. aside from that, they're all going to be really different because I'm changing. Because every time I live a life in one of these books and live my life outside it at the same time, like I'm a brand new freaking person afterward. And maybe that makes me like an insane person, but like I think being an artist is being a little bit insane. I think that's like, I think nobody should want to do this, but it's the most glorious thing. But it's like, we just make shit up all day.
Yeah, I think that being static is boring and dynamic is much more fun, honestly. You
Yeah.
know, you should
Yeah.
jump around and cover more of the human spectrum, and I think that that's what makes art fun. And I think to move away from that is really fucking boring.
Yeah. And yeah. So, and I just like so much stuff. And I think I
Yeah.
like a challenge. I think I like, like really Maeve was sort of like, all of these are like me doing poorly in existing genre. Like Maeve was kind of like me doing a slasher in my own way, but not really doing a slasher. And American Rapture was like me doing zombie apocalypse in my own way, but like not really doing it. And this one's like me doing a crime thriller, but not really doing
But
it.
that's the best stuff because that's the nuance of it all, and that's how you get new story and like how people like because there's so much of all of your books that I've identified with different pieces of me, and you don't sometimes you don't access those parts of yourself until you realize you're not the only one who feels that way, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, this is actually a thing to feel this way. It's not just me. It's not just this shadowed corner of myself that I feel strange about. So it's so to expect any one person to be so one faceted, I think is not fair. And I fucking love that we get the best thing in horror that I get. I see it with your work, I see it with Rachel's work, I see it with Liz's work, is like getting every version of your story, of your version of that thing, because it looks different to everyone, you know?
Yeah, and I think change is the only constant and I'm just lucky like I have an editor who's down. Like she's like, what are we doing next?
Yeah.
And it's that sort of like intrepid spirit is also so glorious to me because it's like, what should we do? What have
Yeah.
we got done? And now like I'm exploring like I've never done a gothic. It's very fun like reading a bunch of gothics and kind of like learning how to do this and I think that it's like a bit of the like addiction to newness too, and like learning and sort of like in getting immersed in new worlds.
Yeah. I want to ask you this question. This is probably a weird question, but music, they say that your senses are always, really heightened for like certain intense periods of your life. So like if you smell something from your childhood, like that will bring you back. I find the same to be true for like music, and I'm very curious if you think of your life in books, like your book stages, because you're somebody who immerses yourself so much in
Yeah,
your
I think
work.
probably recently. Yeah, for sure. Because it is like you work through these things and then the book's done and you're like, "Oh, I guess I can let go of that." I guess that's not really who I am anymore. Like you have this total release. Like the book goes out to other people and it's not really yours anymore and then each time I think there's this cool question of like, so what now? Like, what am I next? But yeah, I think the same way, like you're talking about music and smells and things, like um, someone recently was like, "You're like a method actor," and I was like, "I wouldn't say that," but like I do, like I'll listen to poor Kyle living with me. But, like I will make a playlist for whatever book I'm working on, or I'll have like three because it's like I have three books at a time, and that's all I listen to.
Yeah, no.
I get like crazy and then I like to try and live the lifestyle a little more of my it's sounding like method acting it's not good but I like to immerse myself as much as I can.
The poor
Oh,
case of not
so
method acting,
good.
yeah.
But yeah, so totally like I'm always gonna hear outlaw country in John Denver and think of this time period and hikes I did in Colorado when I was researching and I don't eat meat, but getting Kyle to order ribs so I could watch him eat ribs and see how the meat pulled off the bone in Colorado. Things
That
like that.
it's such a rich life to do it that way,
It's
though. Like
a good life.
Yeah, how boring would it be to not? Like, if you've got the ability to, just do it. Who cares if you're method acting or not? You know? Who gives a shit? Oh man. I I always adore talking to you. This is always the best.
Best. You're
So
the best.
so what else do you have going on this year? What else can we promote and plug for you?
Oh, good question. I might have like one more short story coming from somewhere, but it's a secret.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I'm touring. So I'll be at Stoker where you will also be, and I'm so excited. I'll be at some festivals, PGH Book Fest, Creepaway Camp. There's others. My fall schedule is like a whole other thing, but for the summer, um, there's a lot. I'm excited. I'm going to Gen Con for the first time this year.
Nice.
That'll be fun. But yeah, I come see me on tour. I have really cool yeah, I'm just gonna talk about it. I've got why fuck it. I'll post about it soon anyway, but there's an artist I'm friends with and we are working on
Yeah.
road trip maps for my book. So people can
So
like go if they ever want to like go see the like real life locations
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
even stay where I stayed when I wrote like big chunks of books, or go eat at my favorite place, or go to my favorite indie bookstore in these locations, or
I
whatever.
love
So, like,
that so
it's
much.
fun.
That's
Little
so
field
fun.
guides.
Oh, I love that so much. That's brilliant. And I don't know how has anybody done that before?
I don't know, but I'm like my big special interest is maps. Like
Yeah.
I fucking love a map. Like I people bring me maps. Like I love a road atlas. I stop at every visitor center and anywhere I can buy a map or grab a map, I'm getting the freaking maps and that's like my total happy place. So it's crazy to me I haven't done this sooner and we're putting in the fake places too and talking about the
Yeah.
inspiration. There's going to be lots of like little extra things in there. So it should
Good.
be
Good. Well, I'm very, very excited for that. Yeah, and you've got a tour with many, many stops, and I'll share all that in the show notes so that way people can see where all that's going to be.
And one is with Anna, by the way, everyone.
Yes, yes, I will be doing my first in-person author event. I will be sweating. It'll be great.
It's gonna be so fun.
It will be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I love this book so much, and if there was ever a book to like be the first that I help promote in this way, I'm so happy that it's this one because there's
Oh
so
my
much I could
God.
talk about with this book in particular. Like I said, it was very much a book for me. Not to make this about me, but to kind of make it
It's
about
about
me.
you. I wrote it for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, no, dude, seriously. It's always a really, really good time to get to talk to you, but I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable about this book. I know it's not always easy business to kind of be like, yeah, this is me and my heart on the page and the intricacies of
Yeah.
that. But I really appreciate you, unpacking it all with me, or as much as we can anyway, without spoiling too much.
Yeah, this book is like fucking impossible to talk about. I'm sorry. I feel bad for like anybody asking me questions about it because it's so hard to dance around anything in this
There
book.
there are like specific scenes that I would love to talk about very much in depth, particularly a bathroom scene. But again, it's one of those things I would rather I think people find on their own and
Yeah. We can
experience.
always do like a spoilery thing one day to just talk about
Yeah.
the bathrooms.
Yeah, unpacking the bathroom scene. That dude, I might take you up on that in like a few months, like
Fun,
once.
why not? We'll do it over drinks.
Yeah. Oh my God, that'll be great. Oh my God, yes. Perfect. Well, this is an excellent plan. Thank you so much, CJ. Is there anything that I missed that you wanted to mention before we wrap things up?
I don't think so. Yeah, definitely come out and say hi on tour. And I'm just so honored that anybody wants to like still be reading my books. I'm so happy to have gotten to chat with you. You're just the best. And I can't wait to see what you've got coming next. You've had like such exciting big moves, and I've gotten to have this like firsthand look at your very brilliant creative brain, and I'm excited for the world to get to see more of that too moving forward.
Thank you. That's very sweet. Yeah, I just feel like a hot mess at this point, but that's a very eloquent way to put it.
Welcome. That's being a right. That's it. That you've done it. Great
Hooray.
job.
Unpack the secret. Incredible. Well, thank you so very much, CJ. Headlights is on shelves on June 9th. Is that correct?
Good night. Yeah.
June 9th from Tor Nightfire. Everybody should go out and grab a copy. But until next time, thanks so much, CJ.
Thank you.
A huge, tremendous thank you to CJ for her time and being as open and just so fucking present for this interview. Headlights is a big book in a lot of ways. It's the first book that I've worked on. As y'all heard, she hired me as an authenticity reader during the developmental edit phase. Um, and that was incredible. I cannot thank her enough for that opportunity. And beyond that, the ending of Headlights is really important and really, really big in a lot of ways. It's a book that it feels like it just beats out any conventional means and just completely soars above art itself to give us an idea, a comfort, a conversation about what happens to us after this life and all of its brutality and grossness and uncomfortableness. CJ has somehow given us something to comfort us, or to keep us company in the meantime, I guess. So yeah, and to give some more information, I will be joining CJ in conversation on June 11th in Springfield, Missouri. It'll be held at 4x4 Brewing Company. And I will be her conversation partner. I'm going to figure out some hopefully new and fun questions and talking points other than these. So if you've listened to this, hopefully, you won't be listening to the same thing. I say hopefully. I'm definitely going to find something new. Um, but yeah, come out, come see us. I did my first speaking engagement at StokerCon just a few days ago, and I had a blast. It was lovely. I don't remember a thing I said, but I know I had a good time. So I'm very much looking forward to getting to do that with CJ and to promote Headlights, a book that means the world to me, quite frankly. So once more, go out, pick up a copy of Headlights, come see us. And yeah, just a big thank you to CJ once more. There will not be a bonus episode, I don't believe, this week. I think I'm just a little too swamped at the moment. So I will be, hopefully returning back to a little bit more steady clip of getting some things out to you all next week whenever things return to normal and I am at home for longer than 3 days at a time. So until then, though, I hope that you all are doing well. I hope that you all are safe and happy. And until next week, I will see you all